Coverage of the Pro Farmer Midwest Crop Tour is brought to you by DuPont Pioneer.
Time now for the inside word on this year's Pro Farmer Midwest Crop Tour. Pro Farmer editor Chip Flory leads our discussion.
Welcome to Owatonna, Minnesota. We're at the final night of the Pro Farmer Midwest Crop Tour. I'm Pro Farmer editor Chip Flory. We've got Western Tour consultant Jason Frank with us, Eastern Tour consultant Mark Bernard, and Pro Farmer senior market analyst Brian Grady sitting right here with us. He led the Eastern Tour. Guys, we saw drought stress from the west coast to the east coast of the Corn Belt this week. And I want to start where the drought got most intense earliest in the year, and that was over in the Eastern Belt. What'd you guys see over there in Ohio?
On the Ohio part of the tour, we saw a crop that it surprised me a little bit. I expected maybe we would see a little better because we were watching the radar. We saw a little more rainfall in that area. The crop kind of disappointed me a little bit, I think, in overall terms.
Okay. All right. Now let's move into what was the epicenter of the drought over there in Indiana.
Yeah, we got into Indiana, and I'll tell you, just a lot of short corn, a lot of dry corn, and it just didn't yield when we got out there and took our calculations. It was a situation we knew it was going to be ugly going in, and it proved itself to be that.
Okay, over there in Ohio, we had an average corn yield of 110.5 bushels per acre, down 29%. Indiana corn yield was 113, down 21%. That Ohio pod count number was down 17.5% from last year. In Indiana, down just 9.2.
Yeah, I think it looked like the beans fared just a little bit better than the corn did, but it didn't fare well overall. I think that's the most resounding thing is it held up a little bit better, but not much.
Okay, let's move into the number 2 corn producing state in the country, that being Illinois. Really some tough looking stuff there.
Definitely some tough looking stuff. We ran down around Springfield, Illinois, saw an awful lot of harvest going on down there. Maybe 5 to 10% of that corn was harvested. Plus we've got the additional problems with some aflatoxin showing up. A lot of real nervous people that we were talking to on our route.
There are some really good soils in central Illinois, obviously, and we were going through there, and the corn was, chest high, shoulder high in some cases is all, and just did not yield whatsoever. We were coming out of there. That's ground that you can look at, and that's 180 to 220 bushel corn normally, and we were pulling 90s at best out of some of those fields.
90s at best. Okay, it wasn't yielding at all in some fields. Zeros.
There were a few zeros in Illinois, and no doubt about it. We tried to, see what we could find, and that was about as good as we could do.
Okay, was there any corn being harvested in Illinois?
Absolutely. We were finding, like I said, 5 to 10% down there south around Springfield, and stock quality was a big issue. Ear shanks also very, very tender. You touch some of those stalks, those ears come right off.
Okay, yeah, we saw some stock health. We'll talk about that in the next segment. Let's get into Eastern Iowa. You guys covered the eastern 2/3 of the state, saw some pretty tough conditions there. By the way, the Illinois corn yield came in at 121.6. That was down 22%. I'm going to go ahead and tell them what the Iowa corn yield was right away. 137.27. That was down 16.5% from the tour findings last year. You guys had to see some tough conditions in the eastern 2/3.
Absolutely. We saw one sample come in at 228. 2 samples later, we're down to 0.
Really?
That was probably the most disappointing thing for me was Eastern Iowa because, we thought we had some areas and some pockets that were pretty good, and we did get that, but we didn't get enough of it. The bad outweighed the good overall, and just shows how much stress this crop really was under.
Okay, you also saw a pretty good corn crop there in the southeast corner of Minnesota, but what was the number one thing that concerns you, Mark, from an agronomic point of view when we're trying to assess what the yield's going to be?
Probably the biggest thing right now is what impact some of those rainfalls had. Did it help us out on the bean side? Is it going to help any at all on that corn side? And it looks like at this point it's probably too late on the corn.
Okay, yeah, absolutely too late on the corn. Can it help the beans?
It can help the beans in the sense that maybe fill out some of those pods, but there were no blooms, virtually none across the entire eastern corn belt and into eastern Iowa. So what's there, it needs to hold on to. Otherwise, it's going backwards.
Yeah, and it's not unusual and the third full week of August when the Pro Farmer Crop Tour is out there to get that one last rain, fill those pods out, maybe even make just a couple of more beans out there to give us a couple of more yield, a couple more bushels of yield. All right, that's the Eastern Tour. We're going to come right back and talk about the western leg of the Pro Farmer Crop Tour when U.S. Farm Report returns.